started? Okay. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We're continuing today, inshallah, with the topic of naskh, commonly translated as abrogation. It might be useful because of the sensitivity and profoundness of the topic, and also for the benefit of those who were not present in the previous session. Inshallah, we'll make a brief summary of what we covered on that particular subtopic in a brief way. And since the total session is limited by half an hour or less, it doesn't matter, inshallah, whatever part we can have before Maghrib Adhan, inshallah, will do. First of all, we indicated earlier in the previous session that the notion of abrogation has nothing to do with the idea of God changing his mind, because that's against his knowledge. That is all embraced. So there's nothing to do with this. Secondly, even for those who believe there's some form of naskh in the Quran or between the messages or revelation given to previous prophet, it is never in the fundamental core teachings of those prophets. It might be variations in some laws or others, but not in the fundamentals of belief and values. In any case, when we go to the Quran to find out how the term naskh has been used and why I have my reservation on the term abrogation, the term abrogation actually is too simplistic, because in the Quran naskh sometimes refers to a new revelation given to a given prophet that supersedes revelation given to a prophet before him. Okay? And we give an example of that Prophet Isa alayhi salam, as mentioned in the Quran, his message superseded what was revealed to the Israelites. Not everything, but in some areas, and we spoke about that in some more details. And the reference to that, as we see in the Quran, in Surah 3, Al Imran, in the 50th ayah, there is an evidence of that. To make lawful unto you, i.e. the Israelites, some of the things which aforetime were forbidden. Sometimes it is used also to refer to a new revelation or scripture given to a prophet that supersedes an earlier revelation given to the same prophet. So that's also another form, something that's later in terms of time sequence, timeline, and superseding an earlier revelation. And the best example that has been mentioned in previous sessions, this famous verse, or verses actually, that relate to things that cause intoxication or has a narcotic effect, not only wine as such. The last ayah in Surah Al-Ma'idah, the 5th surah, in ayah 90, is the final ayah actually that was revealed to make it more explicit that drinking is forbidden. Prior to that, there was a gradual process of change, and that is the reason why there is supersession. Not that the old teaching are no good, but to move people when you deal with personal bad habits in a gradual way. We spoke at length that there were stages of prohibition of khamr that we liken perhaps to the detoxification that is a very modern concept for people who are really addictive, so that they didn't have a severe kickback or suffering because of immediate stopping. And the reason these ayat are all still in the Quran is that they give us a model that without changing the law, without setting back to early stages, these are laws that has been finalized, but to teach us with certain people who enter into the faith or want to be Muslims but cannot get rid of it immediately. So we don't make a special law for them, but we say try your best, but you go according to the model in the Quran if that is helpful and achieve your purpose. But no change in the finality of the last revelation on that. There are a variety of attitudes among earlier scholars. Some, unfortunately, minority of scholars exaggerated a great deal about the occurrence of naskh, or I call it supersession anyway, to claim even that dozens and dozens of verses were all abrogated with one verse, which is actually doesn't have something that doesn't have any firm stand and refers to some misunderstanding of the text of the Quran. This was one view. The other view are those who totally denied the occurrence of naskh in the Quran, but actually it is not really total denial, because there is an issue of semantics here. Some of the Sahaba and Tabi'een, when they used the term naskh, in fact, they were referring not really to one verse superseding or abrogating a previous one, but actually to something called in ulum al-Quran takhsis, which means to specify, not really to totally remove. So my part of that confusion is, for those who exaggerated in naskh, maybe a lot of what they talked about was not really technically replacement of a ruling with another ruling, but actually to narrow down, like the khamr, it became much more clear and much more specified. We gave examples that many of the ayat that some people thought superseded the other, such as the ayat about fasting or charity, or peaceful coexistence versus fighting, are actually not really superseding or abrogating, because each one has its own application. Fasting could be both optional as well as the mandatory, charity the same, peaceful coexistence versus the right to defend yourself and not contradictory. They're all actually complementary and reconcilable. Okay, so this is basically, but in any case, as we'll show in the last slide, inshallah, in this topic, that there are really very, very few verses in naskh, especially in the issue of gradualness of change. But I'm not going to tell you about that now, because we're not at the end of the topic yet. The types of naskh. We said that traditionally in many books about ulum al-Quran or sciences of the Quran, some say a verse can be superseded or abrogated both in recitation and legal ruling. And we said that this is rather strange, and we spoke about why. Some say abrogation of recitation, so it's no longer in the Mus'haf, but the legal ruling is there. We said again, there is question mark on this, because legal rulings derive their importance and authority by being in the text, not to be removed or not included in the text. But the more likely thing really is the third category, that is, the legal ruling may be superseded, but not the recitation. Like we spoke about the early ayat about prohibition of narcotics, okay? The legal ruling became more specified and more explicit, but not the recitation, because we still read them in the Mus'haf for the reason just explained, to give us a model in dealing with people, not to set the final verse back. But now, I think that was the beginning of supposedly today's session, with this reasonably summary, which was less than 10 minutes really, is to explore in some depth the various ayat that many people use as evidence of naskh, or abrogation. Quote, I use the term abrogation, though I don't like it, but this is easy for communication because that's a more common one. We find that if you go through the entire Quran, like using the concordance of the Quran, that naskh and its derivative appear in 4 ayahs in the Quran, 4 specific mention of naskh. The first one actually has nothing to do with superseding of rules. For example, this following ayah, هذا كتابنا ينطق عليكم بالحق إنا كنا نستنسخ, even if you don't know Arabic, نستنسخ, obviously from naskh. So this has nothing to do with ayat. If you look at the translation of this ayah, and by the way, it's in Surah 45, ayah 29, basically it says in the Day of Judgment, this is, or this is missing here anyway, my apology. Okay, this is our record, meaning the record of your deeds while on life here, speaks of you in all truth. For verily we have caused to be recorded all that you ever did. Caused to be recorded, the nearest translation to nastansikhu. It has nothing to do with the change of any rule. The second of the 4 ayahs refers to the tablets on which the Torah, or Torah, was written. That appear in Surah Al-A'raf in ayah, the surah is number 7, ayah 154, and it refers to the writings of Torah, nothing to do again with abrogation. ولما سكت عن موسى الغضب أخذ الألواح وفي نسختها, from نسخ, وفي نسختها هدى ورحمة للذين هم لربهم يرهبون. It says, and when Moses' wrath, he was angry when he came back and found that people are worshipping idols and all of that. When he came back from the Sinai, when Allah spoke to him, when became quiet after anger, he took the tablets, both according to the Quran and the Bible as well in the Hebrew scripture, that it was written on tablets, in which writing thereof, وفي نسختها, of course you don't detect it because you have to translate in something understandable. وفي نسختها, that means the writing whereof there was guidance and grace for all of those who stood in awe of the sustainer of Allah. The third of the 4th ayahs also has nothing to do with the change of rulings. Imagine, and some people still they say dozens of ayat in the Quran naskh, because these ayat speak about naskh. Yes, the ayat are there, but did you understand them? Did you understand their context? Or just because you quote the word naskh, you start building your theory? Here again, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا, and the reference again is in Surah Al-Hajj, Surah 22, in ayah 52, which briefly means, in the best translation, removal of obstacles attempted by Satan, obstacles toward the dissemination or acceptance of his teaching and prophethood. We read the ayah again in Arabic, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ مِنْ رَسُولٍ وَلَا نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا إِذَا تَمَنَّى أَلْقَى الشَّيْطَانُ فِي أُمْنِيَّتِهِ فَيَنْسَخُ اللَّهُ مَا يُلْقِي الشَّيْطَانُ. يَنْسَخُ اللَّهُ, the verb, from نسخ. فَيَنْسَخُ اللَّهُ مَا يُلْقِي الشَّيْطَانُ ثم يحكم الله آياته والله عليم حكيم. There have been lots of controversy raised by some Orientalists, a tempest in a small cup because of misunderstanding, and unfortunately some Muslim scholars also accept somehow some narrations about that which are actually different narrations, and they accept the wronger narration, in fact, to prove that there is naskh in the Quran. Not in this one. The story basically is that took place in Mecca when the Prophet ﷺ was reciting the Quran, and he came to a point where it mentioned some of the idols worshipped by Arabs before Islam. أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ اللَّاتَ وَالْعُزَّى وَمَنَاةَ الثَّالِثَةَ الْأُخْرَى. Mention the names of those idols. أَلَكُمُ الذَّكَرُ. That's what appeared in the Quran, in the verified copies. أَلَكُمُ الذَّكَرُ وَلَهُ الْأُنْثَى. Because the reason of mention ذكر here and أنثى is that some of the Jahili Arabs used to call the angels the daughters of Allah. So tell them that you people, meaning between brackets, are so chauvinist that you prefer sons over daughters. So you attribute yourself the sons, you're the father of sons, and to Allah the father of daughters rather than the Rabb of all. So that is the story. It's quite clear, and we see shawahid for it. But the invented story, or at least unauthentic versions of that story, is that it says when the Prophet ﷺ was reciting this, Shaitan made him say words of praises to those pre-Islamic idols, which is contrary to what Allah said in the Quran about protecting the Prophet to convey the message. That wouldn't happen. Wouldn't let the Prophet utter any falsehood to that man. Some story perhaps might make more sense. That is, when the Prophet was reciting that, he did not change or put something different from what is in the Quran, but Shaitan tried to mislead people, especially the mushrikeen, by letting them hear it or whispering to them that he was praising the idols. And what may support that story is that when he came to that, the Prophet ﷺ came to that ayah, he made sajda, and even the mushrikeen made sajda. For him, sajda to Allah, that we worship Allah alone. For the mushrikeen, hearing the false whispering of shaitan, they were very happy and elated to the point that they prostrated even that now Muhammad ﷺ recognized our idols. So to take any other versions of the story other than that is totally contrary to the Quran, contrary to history, contrary to logic for that matter. But there is something I found. Let me give you the translation of that verse, because I didn't do that before. Whenever we sent any prophet or apostle or prophet before you, and he was hoping, that's a good translation also, or another meaning of the ayah. He was hoping, and that is the difference between umniyati and umniyati. Those who know Arabic, umniya means what? Hope, tamanni shay, hope. And in that case, what was the Prophet hoping for? That people would accept his warning and accept his teaching, for that matter, if you take it in that meaning, fi umniyati. Okay? And then it says, whenever that happened, Satan would cast an aspersion to try to confuse people in his innermost aims or hopes of that prophet. But then it says, but Allah renders null and void whatever aspersion Satan may cast. And Allah makes his message clear in and by themselves, for Allah is all-knowing and wise. Both of these because the ayah, by the way, there are two different qira'at, acceptable, authentic recitations. If you take the meaning of ummiyatih, it's quite clear. Any prophet comes, try to teach people. When people even become inclined to accept the truth, shaitan keep moving people to try to put obstacles, whether by eliminating the prophet, the Quran speaks about killing prophets, or trying to falsify his message by accusing him of lying or invention, and all of that to stop people from believing. So Allah yansakh, remove any of those kind aspersion that he makes people confused about, and Allah established truly his authentic message. But I wish to draw your kind attention to something that was mentioned in several sessions in the sciences of the Quran, that the original script of the Quran did not have a vowel signs or diacritical marks like Shadda, Hamza, and all of this. That's even were not known. And some people make a big deal about that. They say different Qur'ans. No, it is the same Qur'an with more than one non-contradictory version of understanding. So the ummiyati and ummiyati, you could not have distinguished that in the original script. So people have to depend the Qur'an, and why both qira'at are valid, not on their guess, not exclusively because the words without marks could be read this or that, but because they heard it from Qur'an. And it is well known that there were differing acceptable qira'at of the Qur'an. It's the same Qur'an, not really a Qur'an that's different. So let's take the other meaning. Ummiyati. Ummiyati means recitation. So that perhaps might relate to the story I said, it's perhaps closer to authenticity, that we have not sent any prophet except that when he recites, meaning recite the verses or revelation to people, shaitan may create that confusion. However, my humble inclination is definitely in his recitation. What evidence do we have from history or from previous scriptures even that this happened? That means each and every prophet, he faced that, say, historically, and having studied a little bit my dialogues with Christians and Jews and some little knowledge of that, there is no precedent that I know of. So that wouldn't exclude that this attempt by shaitan is really in the scripture revealed to this prophet. And by the way, as we say that it's impossible that Allah would allow the Prophet ﷺ to utter any falsehood, the same apply to previous prophets. Because the ayah in the Quran that Allah, whenever He sent a prophet, يَسْلُكُ مِنْ بَيْنِ يَدَيْهِ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِ رَصَدًا, He would have protection of that prophet in his utterance, لِيَعْلَمَ أَنْ قَدْ أَبْلَغُوا رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ, to make sure that the risala or message of Allah. But ummiyatih, that is broad, and it happens with every prophet. You read the story of prophets in the Quran, shaitan always try to drive people, turn them. So I think that general meaning seems to be much more sensible. Wallahu a'lam. The fourth and final ayah that explicitly speaks about naskh, or a derivative of naskh, it's a very interesting one. That is the only one that naskh was mentioned in the context of ayah. But before we elaborate on that, let me remind you of topic 1 that was beginning of last year. I think it's when we started that. March, was it, or April, sometimes, in a very first topic on Ulum al-Quran, we indicated quite clearly that the term ayah has more than one meaning in the Quran. And that's why, if some of you remember that, that the word ayah literally means sign of Allah. And that's why I objected. We use the term verse, but verse connotes poetry. And the Quran says, وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَاعِرٍ. Okay, the word poetry is not very accurate, but we use it when we address people who are not familiar with Islam, because you don't have time to go through that explanation. But ayah, literally, sign of Allah. And there are ayat in the universe, physical ayat, and there is ayat also in a sense of ayah, or portion, or section, or you might say ayah, or part of the Quran. You find lots of evidence for that. I could have brought more and more details, ayat and translation. Inshallah, I'll just give you one that comes to mind. وَفِي الْأَرْضِ آيَاتٌ لِلْمُوقِنِينَ. On earth, there are ayat, signs for those who have certitude. Ayat is the plural of ayah. So it doesn't talk about ayah from the Quran. You get my point? With this background, you look at the ayah. مَا نَنْسَخْ مِنْ آيَةٍ أَوْ نُنْسِهَا. And there is another qira'ah, نُنْسِئْهَا, which means delay. نَأْتِ بِخَيْرٍ مِنْهَا أَوْ مِثْلِهَا أَلَمْ تَعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. This ayah is in Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, ayah 106. That is the closest that came to the use of the term ayah. Does it prove that this is an ayah in the Quran? Definitively, no. Number one, because ayah could be a sign or revelation to any prophet for that matter. Let me read the translation of that ayah. Surah 2, ayah 106. And oftentimes we are helped against misinterpretation or mistakes in understanding the Quran by looking at the context. And context include the ayahs before or ayahs after that. Inshallah, we'll finish with that almost momentarily. Okay, it says, مَا نَنْسَخْ مِنَ previous ayah, 105, speak actually, and says, that's 105. ما يود الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب ولا المشركين أن ينزل عليكم من خير من ربكم والله يختص برحمته من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. What does that ayah mean, and how does it help us to understand the context of naskh that appears in the following ayah? It says, neither those from among the followers of earlier revelation, people of the book, who are bent on denying the truth, meaning of Islam, nor those who ascribe divinity to other beings besides Allah and mushrikeen, would like to see any good ever bestowed upon you Muslims from on high, meaning from Allah, your sustainer. But Allah singles out for His grace whom He wills, for Allah is limitless in His great bounty. Obviously, what the ayah here immediately before speak about the jealousy of some people who were giving the scripture before, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose an Arabian prophet, because all previous prophets known in the area were from the Israelites, the descendants of Ibrahim alayhi salam through Isaac down to Isa alayhi salam. And that was a source of their pride. And in the meantime, jealousy also. Even though they realize, as the Quran stated other places, that it is Allah who chose the Prophet. He didn't choose himself, nor was he elected by majority votes or popularity in basis. So the khayr here actually, in that context, and ينزل عليكم من خير, ينزل is used not for fruits coming from heavens. ينزل عليكم من خير, the ultimate khair coming from Allah is the revelation, the final revelation given to the Prophet. Once we put it in that context, and immediately ما ننسخ من ayah here means revelation. Whenever we have revelation, we're not saying that what Moses said is wrong. No, we say this, the core message is the same. So if Allah wanted to get the message to Isa alayhi salam, so it superseded what Moses taught, not cancel it. Superseded in some areas, and we have seen that before. Then came Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. His message superseded all other message, and his universal message to all mankind was already established. I'll stop at that, and next time we'll begin still with one remaining part, but I don't want to delay Maghrib. Are there ayat in the Quran that could refer to naskh without using the exact terms? This is part of intellectual honesty. You don't just pick what you like. And we made a rebuttal for those using. But honesty requires to see any other term also can refer to naskh and evaluate it also in the same manner. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب. Inshallah, next week, next Friday, Maghrib will be quite early. I think it will be about 6